So for the audience's sake, like so me and Stomp text back and forth about like ideas for the show, and Stomp, he's like throwing this idea of like, we got to do tick jokes. So I think he slipped a couple in when we did the tick segment, but he's like, this is like probably, he texted me earlier today and he's like, we're going to do a tick joke segment. And I think it was like the third time he's mentioned it to me, and I was like, all right, whatever, we'll do it. So, but you got your tick jokes out.
I got it off my skin. Get it?
Yeah. So.
Oh, man, that was a good one.
All right.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stomp.
Okay, Stomp, we are on episode 13.
13. Is that a good number? A lucky number? Unlucky number?
This show's gonna be a disaster. It's not lucky.
13. Ooh, something creepy about that.
Seriously, how long have we been doing this for now?
Oh, let's see. We're going back. What episode 5 was like done in May, right? May 8th.
So.
I don't know. We're on 13, so 2.5 months. But it took at least a year.
Well, yeah, because
a year of prep time. We came up with
probably like 2 years we were talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. We had the gear laying around, and then we just shelved it for a while, and then we got into the software side of it, and that took a while. It's been a while. It's amazing.
Yeah, we made it though. We're gonna get to 100 before you know it.
Yeah, and ever increasing downloads. Maybe not 50 million, but we're getting up there now.
Yeah. I'm waiting for IBM or Oracle or some big company to want to advertise for, or REI. REI can advertise with us.
I just want something local, like let's see, Lahoots, sponsored by Lahoots.
Oh, that'd be nice. That would be nice.
New Hampshire Chronicle features.
Oh, Whale's Tail amusement, or Storyland would be even better.
What's that crazy Western one that's up by Twin Mountain? They have that Western place.
Oh, that's closed.
Oh, it is? Like permanently?
I think.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
That's the one next to Santa's Village. I think it's called. Oh my God, I'm gonna forget.
That's a great one.
It's gone now. No, it was horrible. I went there once with my kids. It was boring.
What's that one over on 16 near Jackson?
You're thinking about the Wolfman.
Yeah, well, that's Clark's.
Clark's Trading Post. That one's good, yeah. So Six Gun City. Six Gun City is what you were talking about.
Yes.
Six Gun City is next to Santa's Village, which Santa's Village, this is going to be very controversial, so I'm sure people are going to make comments about this, but Santa's Village, better than Storyland.
I suppose. No, it's open for debate.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's the great debate. But for me, the reason why, so, all right, we're going to get into this a little bit. So we'll get into search and rescue shit in a minute. But if you're a parent and you've got kids, the reason why I recommend Santa's Village is it's higher elevation. It's typically cooler, and there's a lot more trees up in Jefferson. Storyland is great, but it's sort of like a concrete jungle in a lot of that area there, so it gets really hot in the summertime. And I just prefer Santa's Village. It's Christmas. Decorating cookies is the best.
Yes. Yeah, I like the other one, I guess. I don't know. I have fond memories of taking the kids there, and then we would go to a restaurant after, and there was this one restaurant nearby that would sell a drink that was named I Survived Storyland.
That's a good drink.
Yes.
Is it just like 6 straight shots of vodka?
Yeah, something. Oh, good times.
Yeah. I definitely love Storyland and Santa's Village, so you can't go wrong with either one. Very good. All right, so we're going to transition a little bit here, and we're going to be talking about COVID tonight. So we're going to take a sorry. We got some crazy search and rescue stuff too that we're going to cover, but this week we are going to take a look back at the impact that COVID has had on the New Hampshire hiking community, and we'll get a little bit of detail on Stomp's perspective on how this affected search and rescue, and, it's dealing with sort of the impossible challenges of operating in the field while also trying to protect yourself from exposure. But as vaccinations increase and we see cases decreasing and we're starting to get back to normal, what we want to do here tonight is just take a look at some of the lessons learned from COVID and put a spotlight on human behavior in the face of fear and uncertainty.
And now you can say, I'm Mike.
Oh, yes, that's right. I am Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
Forgot about that part.
Getting old.
Exactly. So, drink discussion here, Stomp. You got anything interesting that you're drinking this evening?
I'm still sipping on last week's margarita.
You are, oddly enough. I am still sipping on last week's Medford IPA. So, no changes there, but we will share those on the show notes. So,
the ice cube's gone. It's nice and warm, but it's tasty.
Yeah. Just to let people know, we're recording 12 and 13 pretty close together. So, I haven't had enough time to drink the 4-pack that's in my fridge. So I'm just going through the Medford Brewing Company Navigator IPA.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Any recent hikes for you, Stomp?
I have not. I've been sort of tied up editing podcast episodes.
Very cool.
How about
I haven't gone on any hikes. Unfortunately, we've had a recent loss in the family. So I would actually like to just quickly throw out a dedication for, I want to thoughts and prayers to my family. My mother-in-law passed away last week, and she's sort of the rock of the family. So it's been a tough week for everybody.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So Kathy Twiggs, great lady. Matter of fact, I owe her such a huge debt of gratitude. First of all, for having a lovely daughter that I married and had 3 kids with, but also Kathy and Tom, have been so great to me, and really like the whole exposure to hiking and being up north. I owe a lot of that to Kathy and Tom, because they've got a lovely house up near the Freiburg area that I've spent the last 25 years going up, and it's really close to the mountains. So it's been a rough week, but not a lot of hiking going on.
Yeah. Well, you've been in our thoughts and prayers, and it's never easy.
Yeah, Kathy, we love you and we miss you.
Yeah.
But I will say, Stomp, I didn't get a chance to do any hiking, but I did do one kind of cool thing that I want to share with the audience. Do you fish at all?
I toyed around with it, but nothing serious.
Yeah. Our friend Casey is the fishing expert.
Oh yeah, but we should get him on sometime, right?
Yeah, we definitely. He's got some good stories to tell. But I did get a chance to go out and do deep sea fishing. So I live in Massachusetts, kind of close to the ocean. So I went out. Have you ever heard of that show Wicked Tuna on National Geographic?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's great.
Yeah. So I got together with my brothers, and we did a charter on a boat called the Hard Merchandise, which is one of the boats featured on Wicked Tuna from National Geographic. So we went out with Captain Jay and Captain Joe, and we did some haddock fishing and caught some haddock and some cod. It was good times.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah,
you can't beat
they
that.
let me drive the boat too.
Oh Jesus!
They let me sit in the captain's chair. I don't know if I was driving.
How fast was it? Pretty peppy?
I think they go like, I don't know how fast a knot is. Oh, it's 11 knots is what they were going. So I don't know how fast that is.
Yeah. Oh, somebody in the audience can look that up quick.
Yeah. I don't know. It was probably like 20 miles an hour or something.
Was your hair blowing back in the wind?
I was inside. So no hair blowing back.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. I don't have any hair to blow back. So. Very cool. All right. So I got, before we get into our first segment, I did want to just give a heads up. I got some updates on the podcast website. Yeah, so I've been I've been adding to my spreadsheet for search and rescue. So I've got there's a search and rescue database that you can go through to look at every search and rescue event that's been published in the media for the last 2 years, 2019 to 2020. By the time this episode drops, there will be an update, so I will add the first 4 months of 2021 to that database so that we can compare month over month. So you'll be able to take a look and see, like, what did January of 2019, January of 2020, and January of 2021 look like, and it'll answer the ultimate question of, are search and rescues increasing or not? Mm-hmm. So look forward to that, and I'm sure we'll throw some other stuff up on the podcast website. So always take a look at that at slasherpodcast.com, SLASR podcast.com. Cool. So Stomp, you want to get into talking about COVID?
Oh yeah, I love talking about COVID.
Yeah. Can we? Is it over? Can we say it's over at this point, or are we still? Is it still to be determined?
I personally think it's over. It's endemic at this point. Yeah, it's over. We're moving on.
Yeah. I think Massachusetts is ending the mask mandate on May 29th. I'm sure it'll be a slow transition. Like, there's going to be a couple of weeks where, it will be people still holding on to the masks. And, if you want to wear a mask, I have no issue with that. But I do think that we're going to call it an end to COVID around here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, back last March, somewhere around like the 27th, I believe, that's when Sununu put the stay-at-home order in place. And, being on a search and rescue team, it was an interesting time just trying to get our heads around how that would impact us on the trails and this and that. And feel free to jump in and ask me any questions about this. But initially, the teams were essentially taking an assumption of risk stance. It's like, hey, this is happening. We had a waiver, of course, from the stay-at-home because we're emergency services, volunteer groups. And we let our members know right off the bat, you assume the risk. If you're uncomfortable showing up with this new COVID outbreak going on, then just stay home. Search and rescue is going to continue. It's not going to stop. There will be injuries and medical incidents on the trails that we're going to have to respond to. So everybody was trying to just get their heads around what was going on. The day after that emergency order came out, Fish and Game came out with their own post on, I think, the 27th. It was labeled Outdoor Recreation and COVID-19 Restrictions.
Got it.
And essentially, it sort of mirrored what the governor had stated in Order Number 17, the emergency order. But what's really interesting about this is Colonel Jordan, who is the chief law enforcement over at Fish and Game, he is quoted as saying, "Fresh air and being in nature are important for our mental health, and people are encouraged to recreate safely, responsibly, and," here's the kicker, "close to home." And he goes on to say, "This is not the time for epic hikes or backcountry adventures. We encourage people to enjoy nature in their backyard or neighborhood and to stay a safe distance from others while doing so." Okay, so this is sort of setting up the foundation for the subsequent months to follow, because what you have obviously are the state-by-state mandates and restrictions. You have an incredible migration of people moving from state to state out of big cities into the rural areas. You have, even within Hampshire, you have different portions of the state trying to respond to this new migration and these new stay-at-home orders. Like, what does this mean? Can I go hiking an hour up the road at Mount Washington? Do I have to stay like me here at Welch Dickey? Or what does this all mean? So it was a really interesting time.
Yeah, and I know, from my perspective, so I'm not on search and rescue, Massachusetts resident, pretty typical. Like, I drive into the city every day. I've been doing that for years. So I work in Cambridge, Mass, and 20 plus years driving into Boston, and doing that commute from the North Shore area of Massachusetts. Typically, it'd take me an hour and 10 minutes to get into the city early in the morning, and then an hour and a half to 2 hours to get home. So we all transitioned into remote work, and from my perspective, I would typically run along the Esplanade and sort of keep my sanity. So I did find local local areas. I do live in an area that has a lot of like trail systems, so I could run locally right from my house. But I want to hike, and from my perspective, when COVID first kicked in, and we had the sort of the reality of the fact that we were being asked to stay close to home, I struggled mightily with it, because it was, from my perspective, I was like, well, I can drive an hour and 30 minutes to get to a trailhead, get out of my car, hike, and drive an hour, 30 minutes back, and I will never see anybody. But I did hold the line, and, for me personally, I just felt like there was, too much going on and too much uncertainty with COVID to get out there and hike. But I can tell you, I knew a lot of friends and a lot of people that lived locally in New Hampshire that were doing hikes, and I also knew a lot of people in Massachusetts that were driving up on the weekends. And, it was a bit of a mixed message, I think. Like you talked about, like the encouragement to get out there and hike, but it was I think the confusion was sort of like hike locally, and some people took the perspective to say like, well, if I can get in my car without stopping anywhere and drive to the trailhead, hike, and then come back and not stop anywhere, then, my local hike can be as much as an hour and 30-minute drive north or west or whatever. So right. I think that's where the issues started to come in.
Well, sure. But yeah, I mean, the theory was back then that person coming up could be sick and could infect rescue teams and EMS and local hospitals, which are, fairly lightly staffed and can't handle a big rush of respiratory ill people.
Yeah, and I know New Hampshire is definitely a much more rural area that does not have the capacity. And I think back then in April and May of 2020, it was all about making sure that the hospital and the medical systems did not get overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of stories about people saying like, hey, I'm getting sideways looks because I've got a Massachusetts license plate, and a lot of local folks in New Hampshire being like, look, don't come up here and put us at risk. We don't have the hospital bandwidth to be able to withstand this. So I think that there was a lot of tension, and I got into it in social media with people, and probably looking back, it's not surprising that there was this sort of I guess tension between the folks that live locally and then folks that have been coming up to enjoy the region and hike from out of state.
I mean, New Hampshire certainly had reason to be nervous, because most of the cases that occurred were mostly in the southern portion of the state, the southern third. So, I mean, at that early stage, I think the administration here was pretty wise to do what they did. I'm certain that it probably curtailed a lot of stress on the health system. Yeah, I think you're right. And at the end of the day, when I look at the search and rescue event numbers, and I'll post this on the show notes, but you can see it's actually very interesting data. You can see when you compare month over month. So if I look at what happened in March of 2019 and what happened in March of 2020, there were 5 media published search and rescue events in 2019 in March, and there was 5 in 2020. Where you see the big impact in COVID is that 2019 in April, there was 10 media published search and rescue events. In 2020, there was 4. And I believe that even of those 4, I think 1 or 2 of those was just a fish and game walkout. So there wasn't. I think there might have been 1 or 2 carryouts in that group. And then in May of 2020 compared to May of 2019, May of 2019 had 19 media published search and rescue events. May of 2020 had 4. So, in 2019 you had 29 total events across April and May. In 2020 you had 8. So there was certainly, as much as it sort of got a lot of concern and consternation about people coming up there and hiking, that data shows you that people were either, if the volume was similar, they were taking less risk, or my guess is that there was probably a lot fewer people actually hiking than there was in the years past. Well, during that time frame, yeah. I think initially people were pretty terrified about, going out and risking, because nobody knew what was going on. Nobody had data.
And you're exactly right, because once June opened up, I think it was around June where Sununu came out and said, like, we're going to, encourage people to get outside.
Mm-hmm.
That's when search and rescue events leveled back to what we saw in 2019.
It's a weird year. I think it's fake news that it was a busier year. I mean, our numbers were about the same. What did increase were the number of no response calls, people calling without headlamps, that type of thing. There was a huge explosion in people just calling up, just lost, no headlamps. Where's the trail? So that increased for sure. But in terms of actual volunteer time, it went up a bit, but the missions were the same.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, I don't have the visibility into that. I only have data that makes the news. So I don't get those, somebody called and they're lost and they need someone to walk them out over the phone.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. But let me shift back to the search and rescue teams for a moment. So you have this early attitude of, assumption of risk, this and that. Eventually that did morph per the governor into having the teams wear masks and, fish and game instituted policies where we would put a mask on a patient and goggles, which is interesting. Putting an N95 and a goggle on a patient makes sense. That was reasonable.
Yeah.
Coming up now, I think it's changing day by day. I think it will lighten up to the point where nobody's masked up, but that is in process.
Yeah. And I think as a hiker, like I did get back into, I'm trying to remember, so I stayed home end of March, April, May. And then the other challenging thing here is there's a lot of people that live in different states that have a second home in New Hampshire or Maine, so they're coming back and forth. So it's not as simple as just saying okay, you're some people make a decision to say okay, I'm now gonna not live in Massachusetts and I'm now gonna live full time in New Hampshire and Maine. And it's what do you say to those people? No, you're not allowed to pick which house you want to live in. So there was a lot of people that ended up just moving up to their second homes if they needed to. And I think around that time, in probably June or July is when the numbers went down so significantly that we started opening up quite a bit. So I got back out there, I think around July or so. And it was interesting. I mean, I wore a mask and, I would keep a bandana or a mask around my neck. And if I, could get off trail and sort of step away 8 or 10, 12 feet, I would do that and let people pass by. But a lot of times I would just throw a mask up and just say, hi, how you doing? And then pull the mask back down. So I don't know how effective the mask is outside. It's certainly I think signals to people that, you don't have any ill intent and that you care about their health. So I was happy to do it, but I think I'm definitely looking forward to not wearing masks on the trail because I definitely couldn't spend much time hiking with one. It's just it's difficult to breathe. And like you said, they get wet, they get tugged at by trees and other stuff. It's just a pain in the neck.
Right. To tie that into some of the rescues, I think the most fascinating thing in that early phase, March 23rd, March 27th, these rescues that were happening, from what I understand, I'm not on social media at the moment, but some of the people that were getting rescued were getting some serious heat online for going hiking and oh my God, how could you prompt a rescue in this time? You're probably more aware of that than I am, but I'm thinking of the hiker that slid down near the Cog Railway, a couple hundred feet, Burt Ravine. Do you remember that one?
I do, and I think that my recollection of that was just one of those hey, shit happens. Probably shouldn't have been in that area around that time, but it's just a rough situation.
But what I'm saying is the pressure from all these agencies saying stay low and local, stay home. If we had known then what we know now about how the disease operates, then I don't think any of this would have happened. There's information coming out weekly, if not daily, about how it spreads, how it doesn't really spread on surfaces, this and that. I feel bad for folks that got put into this situation and experienced that shame and whatever else they went through on social media. It's sort of unnecessary.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that case that you specifically cited, like, but I think we shut down my office on March 17th. And then that event happened on March 23rd. We'd have to look back in time, Stomp, but I'm pretty sure that there wasn't a lot of guidance going on, on March 23rd. I think it was probably early April or late March where they really started to, give people a little bit more specific guidance. I'd have to look at the dates, but I do know the AMC 4,000 footer club shut down recognizing hikes, but I don't think that was until April. So I think those very early cases there, I'd cut them some slack, because I think that the whole idea of low and local wasn't really communicated to anybody until probably going into early April.
Yeah, I think it was actually a little earlier, but I'm not going to go dig up the dates at this point. But there was definitely a vibe and a feeling that people should stay close to home until we got a handle on what was going on.
Yeah, and I certainly, I can remember in April and May, every weekend, because I watched this stuff pretty closely, I had this anxiety. I was if there's going to be a search and rescue, don't be an out-of-stater, because that's going to cause a whole bunch of problems. It's much better off if you are a local. And I do think, if I look at these, matter of fact, I'm looking at the database right now, and I can see all the April and May rescues were New Hampshire locals, with the exception of, it looks like, 2 in May, at the very end of May, were Massachusetts people. So the majority were New Hampshire residents, and they were all pretty much local, with the exception of, I think, those 2 at the very end of May. Mm-hmm. So no out-of-staters, luckily.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Anything like that? Was there anything in search and rescue, I'm assuming, airborne illnesses, other than COVID, I can't imagine that you guys ever worried about catching the flu or catching a cold or pneumonia or anything like that from your rescue patients. You don't think that there'll be any interest in requiring patients to do face coverings in the future once we definitely have the green light that COVID restrictions are done?
No, there's been no talk of that. The CDC is really having a hard time showing that there's asymptomatic spread. I don't see them instituting or pressing policy to discourage people from hiking regarding that.
Got it. Yeah. What do you think? You think long term, have we changed as a society? Are we going to be able to bounce back from this and sort of be able to walk near each other and go up and talk to somebody on the trail? Or are we always going to have this sort of fear of other people because of COVID? What do you think?
Oh, I think that the psychological damage has been done. Without question, I think it's going to take years to recover that. If you look at the CDC, the NIH, who their information was so inconsistent at times about certain things, and I think there was a good deal of neglect as to valid studies and research out there surrounding exposure and the spread and this and that. And I think the damage that caused is just going to take years to overcome.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, from my perspective, it's just, I couldn't keep up with anything. I stopped watching the news. I was watching, that's why I got into Wicked Tuna, is I gave up on watching the news and reading the news, and I just said, I'm just going to wear a mask and hope that no one gets upset at me, and I will follow whatever guidelines are given to me around hiking. And that's sort of the way that I did it. But it will be I'm definitely not going to be quick to shake anybody's hands in the future. I won't be wearing a mask once we get the mandate to say you don't have to wear a mask, although I think that's already happened outdoors.
Well, let me just bring up, just to dig into that question a little further, let's take New Hampshire for example. There were 1,300 deaths. Okay, this is from NewHampshire.gov, COVID-19. 1,300, and 62% were 80 plus. So this is a disease of the elderly, the obese, with multiple medical conditions. So I don't think we have that much to worry about. We really don't.
Yeah, I was always joking with my friend. I was like, I think like the city of Everett probably had more deaths than the whole state of New Hampshire with COVID. And obviously, every death is a tragedy,
Sure.
and you don't want to, you don't want to see anybody die. But the scary thing about COVID that always freaked me out was like, I agree with you. Like, yeah, elderly people that have, other medical conditions. But every once in a while, like I would hear a story or I would find out about somebody that was relatively a little bit younger, like in their 40s or 50s, that didn't have any obvious medical issues, and they would get hit with COVID and die. So there is a little bit of that sort of like getting hit by lightning aspect to this thing that just freaks me out a little bit. So I would never knock anybody from being overly cautious about it. But you're right. In general, it was a disease for, older people that weren't in good medical health overall. But, it's just interesting. We'll see how long term, whether it was worth all these lockdowns.
Yeah, the people you're going to meet on trail are in the low risk category. So you really have to reframe the whole situation based upon the survivability and everything else. Otherwise, you will be living in probably a degree of irrational fear. And the information's out there. I mean, CDC, unfortunately, I don't think the media and like these agencies did enough to promote the actual survivability. And I think that did some harm, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was a very interesting, what are we going on, about 15 months at this point. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to it being over. There was a lot of interesting lessons learned. There was a fair amount of, I think perceived distrust around, were people traveling in and out of New Hampshire. At the end of the day, I think we all learned some important lessons, and, I'm just looking forward to putting it in the rearview mirror and hoping that we never have another one of these weird viruses pop up again.
Yeah, without a doubt. Pretty depressing stuff.
Yeah. So anything else, any other thoughts on this before we move on to search and rescue?
Not really. I do have an uplifting series of tick jokes if you want to hear them.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you haven't gotten any ticks this year yet, have you?
Oh, my God. We just had one. There was one on my arm the other night, just inside the house. I'm like, where the heck did this thing come from? That's the first. Oh, man.
I had to walk through like this super tall grass the other day, and I was freaking out. I was doing like these big high steps, like how the track, like the hurdlers will do those big like hip lift. Like I was doing those lifts, like because I was afraid I was going to get covered in ticks, but I didn't get any on me.
It's funny. They're brutal. But yeah, this was supposed to be delivered by Tick Chick, but she's on tour, so she couldn't make it to the podcast. So here you go.
I'm starting to think the Tick Chick doesn't even exist, but continue.
Oh, she will. She'll show. Right. She will.
Okay.
Pressure's mounting. All right, ready? So if you laugh at these, then you're in trouble. How do ticks get around? They hitchhike.
Oh, God. Such a dad joke. All right, continue.
What do you call a tick that lives on the moon? Come on, this is easy.
I give up. I'm horrible at these.
A lunatic. What kind of tick is explosive? A dynamite.
I don't understand that.
A mite. It's a mite.
Oh, a dynamite. Got it.
Are these the worst or what? There's only a couple others. You're going to love this.
Oh, our ratings are plummeting.
Yeah. What do you call ticks in an open relationship?
I give up.
Politics, of course. What do you call a depressed tick from Rome? A hopeless romantic.
Oh, God. All right.
And
next subject.
Yeah, right. This is the last one, I promise. Ready?
Okay.
Hopefully COVID clears up before tick season. Otherwise, we'll be having Corona and Lyme.
God.
That's all I got for
you.
you.
We are never doing a tick joke segment again.
I'm here all week.
All right. Did you go online and did you make those up yourself, or did you go online and steal them?
They're online. It's so bad, but they're so funny.
So for the audience's sake, like so me and Stomp text back and forth about like ideas for the show, and Stomp, he's like throwing this idea of like, we got to do tick jokes. So I think he slipped a couple in when we did the tick segment, but he's like, this is like probably he texted me earlier today, and he's like, "We're gonna do a tick joke segment." And I think it was like the third time he's mentioned it to me, and I was like, "All right, whatever, we'll do it." So, but you got your tick jokes out.
I got him. I got it off my skin. Get it?
Yeah. So.
Oh man, that was a good one.
All right. Maybe next time, like, we do have to get Tick Chick so she can deliver the question, and then you can give the punchline or something.
Sure. It's just a weekly tick update, like a weather report. It's important.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you want to get into...
So people don't go frantic.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to get into the next segment here? We got search and rescue stuff to cover.
Yeah, let's do it. This has been an interesting week. We had several incidents in one day, actually. This was Wednesday, last Wednesday. The first one, all right, we've covered the Pemi Loop, and this story is pretty amazing. It's a group of younger people that are attempting to do the ambitious Pemigewasset Loop, the 31-mile loop right out of Lincoln. There are three people, let's see, they're hiking with a brother and three cousins. They started the morning of the 17th. It was the first trip to the Whites by this group.
It looks like they're from Indiana?
Yeah, definitely out of state. So the Pemi, as you know, is 31 miles, 8 summits. So on the night of the 18th, 9 p.m., one of the members just gassed out and became exhausted as the group had not made it to their intended tent site. It goes on to say that when this person's companions arrived at Garfield Pond, they turned around and hiked back to this person's location.
So I'm assuming, based on where they're tenting, that they are going
Garfield tent
clockwise.
Site.
So they're going to go up Osseo and then across Franconia Ridge and then camp at the Garfield Pond. There's a tent site down there.
How do you get that?
Well, I mean, otherwise it would be a longer first day. So I'm assuming that, I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing, but I mean, if they're camping at Garfield and it's their first night, then I'm assuming that they're going clockwise. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, really. So they went back to find this person that was just exhausted. They took his backpack and tried to get him to the tent site. So I'm assuming they're at Garfield tent site as well.
Yeah.
For this first day. They arrived back to the tent site without the person. Now this is the second part of the story that is just, I don't know, shaking my head, I guess. The group called New Hampshire Fish and Game the next morning at 10:30 to report him missing. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I have so many questions about this.
So
many questions.
They're at the tent site. It's the first night. He's missing, exhausted. He's gone all night. Is that correct?
I believe that's the case. So they lost him, went back, got him, but ended up just taking his backpack and then
that was it.
Left him again
without his backpack.
And then he's gone all night. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's amazing. So an AMC hut construction crew assisted in a search with Fish and Game officers. And on the second day, 7:30 p.m., they were notified by a hiker that she had located the individual, 0.1 from Garfield Ridge tent site. He was uninjured and able to hike. So I don't know what happened. I'm entering into the speculation here, but they had his pack. Does that mean that they had his light source and everything else? So
I have no idea.
He tried to find the tent site.
It's so odd.
Yeah.
It's such an odd story, and I'm wondering, who knows? It's family members. Maybe they're in a little bit of an argument or something. But it just seems very bizarre. And I'm wondering, what did the guy do that night? He must have just curled up and slept along a rock or something.
I have no idea. It's just fascinating.
You know what my theory is?
Oh, what's that?
It's another one that got abducted by aliens.
Yeah. Is there any talk about not recalling what happened the night before?
I have no idea. But this could be. So we've got a couple of cases where we've got potential alien abduction. So we're going to put this one as a potential.
Yes. Oh man, it's
So bizarre.
awesome.
But I mean, again, it goes back to like the basics, like stick together. You know, you're only as fast as the slowest person you're hiking with.
Bingo.
And if somebody's exhausted, like just sit with them, give them liquid, give them food, let them rest for a little while to recover. Especially, I mean, winter conditions is a little bit different. You got to keep moving. But like in these conditions, I don't think it was that cold. Like you just give them a little bit of rest, give them some food, let them recover their energy, and then get going.
Mm-hmm. The other interesting thing here is that like all of a sudden the heat hit this week. So
Yeah.
this guy's probably, dehydrated, obviously, heat exhaustion, I would assume. Who knows? And it takes your body a while to get used to that heat. When it hits, it takes a bit.
Oh, yeah. I just traveled down to Florida last month, and, normally I'll run 5, 6, 7 miles in the morning, and it's no problem.
Mm-hmm.
I got down to Florida, tried to run, and I did 4.5, 5 miles, and it felt like I ran 15 because it was just so much warmer, and the humidity just hits you differently.
Yeah. So here's story number 2. And by the way, these are stories written by Sergeant Heidi Murphy, who I had the opportunity to meet over the last few months, and she's moving up into the SAR management realm, and she's going to be a really, really great addition. She's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's funny too. The headline on this one is "Wild Wednesday in the Whites."
Well, I noticed that.
Yeah. So the little bit of a
Yeah, she's cool. Like that's her.
Yeah.
That's got to be her title that she wrote. So it just gives you an insight into her personality. She's just very bright and just awesome, upbeat. It's really exciting.
Yeah. So all these events went down on the same day. So 3 of them.
Yeah. So here's number 2. 12:40 p.m. Another call comes in for a 50-year-old female who was unable to continue her hike. This is a person from Michigan, and they were hiking Flume Gorge Trail, Franconia Notch, and according to the report, she was having difficulty breathing and was starting to get cramping. So that's a classic sign of dehydration, loss of electrolytes. Fish and Game notified park staff of her location or approximate location, and they were able to assist her back to her vehicle. This was assisted by Lincoln Fire Department.
Is Flume Gorge Trail, is that in like that tourist area there, or is it on the ascent to get to like the Flume Slide?
I don't know 100%. I assume that it was actually inside the Flume Gorge Park.
That's
where
what
the
I think it
gorges
is.
are.
I think there's like boardwalk area, and then you
Right.
exit the boardwalk, and then there's like about a mile worth of trails that are like traditional trails that you walk back on.
Yeah. I mean, not the longest, series of trails, but you never know.
Yeah. This is the time of the year where I do start, like you said, like I take salt tablets to help with cramping, so I'll throw 1 or 2 of those in before I start hiking. I think they're called Nun tablets, Nuun.
Right.
And they have like grape and orange flavor. They're like they put a little bit of carbonation in the water, but it's electrolyte. So sometimes I'll drop those in, and then a lot of times I'll just stop and get a Gatorade.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Super
Keep
important.
a little bit extra. Yeah. So water is great, but add a little extra to your water if you can.
Yeah, especially in the hot weather.
Yeah.
Now, so that's number 2, and then here's number 3. 5 p.m., another call comes in. 73-year-old female suffering a medical issue along, you guessed it, the Falling Waters Trail in Lincoln. That's a very, very common trail for rescue incidents. This person was from New Jersey. She was about 1.5 miles up, which is actually a decent location for search and rescue teams to be able to assist and package and carry them out. If you go beyond that 1.5 area, it gets a lot more challenging. And you actually have to start doing technical belay rope and things like that just for the safety of the patients.
Yeah.
So Pemi Valley Search and Rescue and Fish and Game were able to carry this individual back to the trailhead by 8:20. So pretty quick. I mean, it's 5 p.m. call, 8:20 return. That's a good, quick turnaround.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Kind of the classic, somebody's going up falling waters a little too far. and they just had a medical issue, and a little bit of an older person, so that always gets scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You never know what the experience level is here for these folks, but not from the area, so maybe hasn't been exposed to this kind of elevation recently, but that is pretty good timing there. So get the call at 5, and then they must have been, if they got back to the trailhead by 8:20, somebody must have got to her by like about 6:15 or so.
Yeah, it was very quick turnaround. Great turnout by Pemmy too. They had like 20 people show up.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Do you know, like, when you have like something that's a medical issue, say like, and again, this was not the case in this particular one, but if somebody's having like a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, do they have like some way to be like, look, we need to get there urgently, or is it always the same sense of urgency in every call, regardless of what the medical situation is?
No, depending on the circumstances, because again, you're generally able in most cases to talk to people, or at least people that a victim is with, so you get a good sense of the status of somebody. In a case like this, it may have been a little more urgent, knowing that it was potentially something bigger going on than what appears to be heat
like
exhaustion.
A twisted ankle or something. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it does depend on the situation. Now, listen, there's one other here. Do you want to cover the Moat?
Yeah, I mean, so there was 3 right in that sort of like Lincoln, Pemmy area, and then we had a 4th on the same day too.
Mm-hmm. I was going to suggest you cover it if you're able, because you just hiked it recently, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, I did, but I think so. This happened on the Moat mountain range, so I had hiked South Moat and Middle Moat. I didn't go to North Moat.
Okay,
and it doesn't specify in this one, but basically what it says is that Bartlett, Jackson Ambulance, North Conway Fire and Rescue, and Lakes Region Search and Rescue, and New Hampshire Fish and Game responded to a report of an injured hiker in Bartlett on the Moat Mountain Trail. So because they referenced Bartlett, I'm kind of assuming that they were on the North Moat side of the trail. But the rescue is located 61-year-old female hiker out of Tennessee, approximately 1.7 miles from the trailhead, with an injured knee after falling on loose rock on the trail. It sounds like the victim was able to walk a little ways and was subsequently carried in a litter to the ambulance. So it doesn't say in the press release, but my guess is that this person was on the the North Moat side, which is sort of like the entranceway to that is Diana's Bath in that area there. It looks like she was up about a mile or 2.
How many miles to the summit?
I think it's about 3 or 4 miles to the summit from the trailhead. So I don't think, if as my assumption, if I assume that, assuming I'm correct, then she would have hiked past Diana's Bath and then a little ways up. And, I can't remember really what the terrain is there. I do know that it's a pretty wide trail around Diana's Bath area, but that it does ascend pretty significantly as you get up to North Moat.
Okay.
So, but knee injury, and, it sounds like she was doing her best to make her way back, but they finally got to her and as you say, packaged her up and got her out to an ambulance.
Yeah.
So weird. Four rescues on a random Wednesday in May. Isn't that weird?
It is. I mean, I've been waiting for the boom, and looks like it hit. And, as we record this, I thought for sure that this night would be chaotic, but it's yet to come to fruition. But it always happens. When it hits 80, they're going to come up, and there's still a lot of snow up there too. I mean, this is a separate thing for like injuries, orthopedic injuries, but the snow. I had some coworkers that did Eisenhower this Wednesday, and they described the snow up near the summit as just post-hole city, where you can look into the hole like 5 feet deep. So it's a mess up there still. Yeah.
And I mean, I did that Willie Tom Field ridge. I didn't hike Tom, but like it was monorail the whole way up. It was microspikes. That was 2 weeks ago. And then I just saw somebody posted they did a Pemmy loop today, and they said the Twinway was The Twinway section is always a tough area because it doesn't get hit with a lot of snow, and they said it was a mess, totally like just still monorail, but all chopped up and miserable. So even, I'm hearing a lot of people talking about doing Pemi loops, and it's still gross in that back section there. So good luck to you if you want to do it, but I'm waiting a couple of more weeks.
Yeah, you mentioning the post holing on Twin, that reminds me of Mark Lindenberg, Nobby Hikes, a.k.a. Nobby Hikes. He, when I first met this guy a couple years ago, he was post holing so much that he quit the Pemi loop at Garfield Tent Site. And anyway, that's a side story, because I just want to give props to him. Right now he's starting from Monadnock, and he's going straight to the Canadian border. I guess his plan is to go to Monadnock, Sunapee, and then jump onto the Coos Trail over the next few weeks. So we'll see how this develops, but we're keeping track. Best of luck to him.
I haven't heard of anybody stringing those together. I'll be curious. We'll have him on the show, but the thing I'm most curious about is how is he connecting Sunapee to the southern terminus of Cohoes, or is he just skipping? I don't know.
I think that is called Call Stomp for a Ride.
Oh, is that what he's doing?
I
saw him put the call out for a ride. So is he? So he's doing Monadnock, Sunapee, and then he's going to skip to the Canadian border and then hike south.
I actually don't know what direction he's going. I'm really not sure about that, to be honest with you. I know that he was going to. I thought he was dropping his car at the Canadian border, but.
Oh, okay.
So I'm thinking he's going north the whole trip.
Yeah, I'm going up there. I'm going to be up in. I'm going to hike McGalloway and Table Rock, so I'll be going up into Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, way up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful country.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But any other rescues, or is it down to these 4?
That's it. We covered them all.
The only other thing I will say about these rescues, and again, I feel like you're a New Hampshire resident now, but I do feel like there's a bit of a sort of chest pounding about it's all these out-of-staters that come in here and get in trouble, and us New Hampshire people are perfect, and the New Hampshire people get in trouble sometimes. But in a sense, I do kind of agree that it is a lot of out-of-staters that get in trouble. But if you look across these 4 people that got in trouble, you've got Indiana, Tennessee, New Jersey, and we got one other one, Michigan. So You definitely have a well-represented population of Midwesterners that are getting in trouble in the white. So I don't know. I don't know what that tells you.
Well, I don't think it says much. I mean, 2.5 million people visit this area yearly. So who knows? I mean,
yeah. I think residency doesn't have much to do with it. What I do think is a factor, and I tell this to people all the time, is the rocks, the roots, the wet, muddy environment here. You over the years, you develop a sixth sense on how to walk in this terrain.
Yep.
And I don't even think twice about it anymore. But if you're not used to it, if you're used to just walking on well-groomed trails and things like that, it's pretty shocking to come up to the whites and deal with some of the gnarly terrain that we have here.
Things that you would think would be safe are ice skating rinks, a route. Yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, this was a good show, lucky number 13, and I guess we'll call this a wrap. All right. Have a good one, Stomp.
You too.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words that describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Only one hill! Lieutenant James Neeland, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.